For more on this story, I'm joined here in the studio by Kobi Sudri, who's a criminal law expert. Kobi, thank you so much for joining me today. Pleasure. So we've just heard in the news that the Attorney General has filed these papers. Tell me, what is the proceeding now? What happens next? Well,
as in every other trial, they will have to set a panel of justices that will hear the case, and afterwards the court will set a date for the beginning of the trial, which probably will be somewhere after the elections. Then Netanyahu and the other accused, Mr. and Mrs. Alovich and Mr. Moses, will have to appear in court and answer the indictment in order that the court will know whether they plead guilty, whether they plead innocence, what kind of evidence should be heard by the court, and then they will start the trial itself, probably, if they won't confess. I guess that only the preliminary procedures would take several months until the trial could start.
So tell me, what sort of options, if any, does Netanyahu have now up his sleeve? Does he really have any kind of wiggle room?
Well, first of all, he pleads not guilty, which means that the court will have to decide upon the evidence that will be submitted to the court. It means a very long trial. What are his chances? Well, my answer is no better than yours, because you never know what happens in court. As you always say, you know, when you get into the court, you never know how you get out of the court.
And tell me, just how unprecedented is this situation? You know, we may be going into a third round of elections. We may end up with a prime minister who is at the same time going to trial.
Well, let's remember, Mr. Netanyahu is not a presiding prime minister. He is the former prime minister. He is a temporary prime minister. He's not a presiding prime minister. If, and it's a big if, after the elections, he will get enough votes, and then he will get the mandate in order to form a government, I guess that there will be another hearing in the Supreme Court that will check whether an MK who's indicted is able to get the mandate in order to form a government, which means that it's definitely a possibility that when Netanyahu will go to trial, he will be an MK at most and not a presiding prime minister.
Certainly uncharted waters we're in here. Kobi Sudri, sure. Thank you so much for coming in. Appreciate it.